mountains over ancient Africa. Virgin wilderness that looks much today the way it has looked for hundreds of thousands of years. The early morning mist shrouding the cool earth begins to rise, dispersed by the sun's warming rays, revealing a treasure below and opening the way for the new day that is coming. The sun also warms and awakens the creatures of the bush, who shake the night from their feathers, greet the new day, and pass on the message. Great and small, they begin to move. For some, a contemplative time before they swing into the new day. But how long could this peace, purity, and perfect balance last? It was to last until man introduced the gun. 100 years ago, indiscriminate hunting, just wanton destruction, was taking its toll. A vision was needed to put a stop to this. Fortunately, there were those who recognized the danger, men of vision, such as President Paul Kruger of the Zuid-Afrikaanse Republiek. For years, he had called for the protection of the wildlife of his country. A piece of prime, low-felt bush between the Crocodile and the Sabi rivers was eventually proclaimed the Sabi Game Reserve. The year was 1898. The vision had become a reality. And what was to become the Kruger National Park, the culmination of a vision, had come into being. These were pioneering days in what would later be one of the most famous wildlife sanctuaries in the world, the Kruger National Park. A conservation showpiece, it stretches some 380 kilometers from north to south and is on average 60 kilometers wide, about 2 million hectares of pristine Africa. Kruger contains some 16 distinct ecosystems, mountains, savanna, bushveld, thornveld, riverine and woodland, supporting 147 species of mammal, more than 500 bird, 118 reptile, 336 tree, and 112 shrub species. And lording over it all is the king. This is Big Five country. White rhino, but the endangered black rhino is here as well. And buffalo, of which Kruger Park has many huge herds. The biggest of the Big Five, the elephant, the gentle giant of the savannah. Perhaps the most elusive of them all, the leopard, considered by many to be the ultimate predator. But like all great systems, Kruger too needed management and a new vision, a vision of caring and public involvement had to come. The man who brought this vision was ironically a former big game hunter, James Stevenson Hamilton. He made President Paul Kruger's vision a reality and opened the reserve to the public. He also urged the expansion of the Sabi Game Reserve until it reached the proportions of a truly national park. The Tsonga name for Stevenson Hamilton was Skukuza, which means he who sweeps clean, because he had the task of clearing the land for conservation. This caused hardships for the local people living around the old Sabi Reserve. They resented the fact that they could no longer live inside the reserve, graze their livestock, or hunt there. The first visitors to this new national park arrived in 1927 through a single entrance gate. But today, there are 8 gates to Kruger, from Pafuri in the north to Malalaan and Crocodile Bridge in the south, where this journey through Kruger begins. Here you can get really close to this special environment, experience the colors, the vibrancy of the natural system. The aloes of the mountainous region of the southwest are a wonder in themselves, and also attract many bird species, such as the nectar-loving scarlet-chested sunbird. Others too share in the bounty of nectar. And the insects again attract other birds, such as the spectacular black-headed oriole. This interaction with the natural environment means interaction with the bigger creatures as well, interaction that can sometimes be at very close quarters, and sometimes quite tense. A good time, perhaps, to ponder the fact that a rhino can weigh 2 or 3 times as much as your car, one of Kruger's real heavyweights. It is important to be back in camp and out of harm's way by nightfall, but that may not be always as easy as you think. Even out in the bush, you may hit a traffic jam. Africa's second most endangered carnivore, the wild dog, the painted wolf of Africa. These much maligned creatures are most likely to be seen in the southern part of the park. And if you're lucky, you might come across a den close to the road. Wild dogs live in packs of 10 to 15 individuals. The pups are born in the dry winter months. Most members of the pack hunt, males, females, and young adults, and usually in the early morning or late afternoon. The hunters return to the den to regurgitate food for the pups and those adults who have stayed home to keep an eye on things. These are among the most fascinating species in the park. The southwestern corner of Kruger is Malelan mountain bushveld country. It is also where one finds the park's southernmost camp, Berg en Dal, the only one in the mountains. This modern camp was opened in 1984 with attractions for all sorts of visitors. It is built on a dam which lures many species. A pyramid of terrapins soak up the sun. Others take a little exercise, while some forage for tidbits. Monitors, or leguans, also enjoy this watery environment. A very special feature of Berg en Dal is for visitors who are visually handicapped. A braille trail set out around the dam gives trailists an opportunity to really get in touch. The braille information allows visitors to feel, to smell, and to hear the different elements around them, and to demonstrate a different kind of vision for Kruger. A more traditional bush experience is to be had in one of the many so-called bushveld camps scattered around the park, such as Biamiti. One of the real joys of these camps is that at some of them one can get beyond the fence on foot to walk in the park and experience it on the ground. In the evening, there is the delight of returning to camp and the communal fire. A time for swapping tales and tall stories of the day, who saw what and where. More and more people from all walks of life are enjoying this hands-on bush experience. Another bushveld camp is Shimuwini. Because they are more informal, these bushveld camps offer the visitor better opportunities, a little more time to watch nature at work, or to get out with the ranger, to be in places and to see things not so commonly seen. Now you see him, now you don't. Now you see him, but no, it's no longer him at all. Stevenson Hamilton's vision of allowing tourists in the park soon necessitated more accommodation. Pretorius Kop is one of the oldest camps in Kruger. It is often referred to as the friendly camp because of its particularly restful atmosphere and welcoming shady gardens. This is the only camp with exotic trees like the Bohemia. These trees were originally established in the ranger's garden. Today, there is a strictly applied indigenous-only rule when trees are planted anywhere in Kruger. The coral tree is a favorite because of its spectacular early spring flowers. The bush around Pretorius Kop is usually quite thick and the grass long, creating a habitat particularly suited to one of Africa's most magnificent antelopes, the sable, and an opportunity for the visitor to have good sightings of them. Of course, there are others who also enjoy this area. The Baboon Roadshow has just hit town. Once the show is over, everyone leaves, taking his seat along. Amusing as they may sometimes seem, baboon are strong, fierce fighters and will tackle anything, including leopard, in defense of the troop, or other baboons in the quest for dominance. Still in the southern end of the park, set on the Sabi River, is Lower Sabi Camp. The thick riverine vegetation provides shelter to a wide variety of game. The river is home to the largest and one of the most dangerous riverine animals in Africa. A raft of hippos, despite their reputation, gregarious creatures who appreciate nothing more than a family get-together and a communal splash and wallow. But the river hides many secrets. A closer look will reveal much more. The roads around Lower Sabi are busy because there is always something to see. Like lion, of course, the great favorite. But who is watching whom? These little steenbok hardly warrant a second thought from the lion, but they are a reminder that there is an ever-present natural tension between predator and prey. The lions are hunting, and on this occasion they also have a watchful audience. Will they have that ultimate sighting, a kill? No, not this time. But they're not giving up yet. There might be a second chance. Impala rates high on the lion's menu, and because there are so many of them around, chances are good here of seeing a kill on the road. This one got away. However, each year lion and other predators take out enough impala to keep the population in check and make culling unnecessary. Skukuza is the biggest camp in the park. It is the park headquarters and therefore the administrative capital. The well-established shady gardens and gently flowing river in front of the camp provide an atmosphere of relaxed peacefulness. It is a popular camp with tourists because the only public airstrip in the park is here, meaning that visitors may fly into Skukuza and start their safari right here. And although the camp is pleasant enough, the accent is on safari. No one wants to stay in camp. They want to get on the road and make contact with the big ones. And contact they make. The largest land mammal alive today, the elephant, a creature of certain mystery, but also a creature of great dignity, great presence, and great power. Having spent all that energy throwing his weight around, he actually has enough guts left to make another challenge. A strategic withdrawal seems a good idea. Strategic withdrawal? What about beating a hasty retreat? This is probably as good a time as any to take a break, to relax a little, to stretch those legs. Dotted along Kruger's roads are many picnic spots. Set in attractive, shady surroundings, they give visitors who are otherwise car-bound an opportunity to get out and move around, make a cup of tea, and even cook breakfast on the gas stoves provided. Make contact with some of the park's smaller residents. But others enjoy these picnic spots too, and snoop around for a tasty morsel. The bushbuck might be a bit slow on the take, but the birds are much better equipped for grabbing the grub. Many birds, particularly glossy starlings. Endearing, cheeky birds, and probably the most numerous ones in Kruger, certainly at picnic spots. If the glossy starling is Kruger's most common bird, then certainly the impala is the most common mammal. And often seen with the impala is the red-billed oxpecker. There are some 150,000 of these graceful impala in the park. The rams are extremely noisy during the rutting season in autumn. They snort, grunt, and growl. The alpha ram has to fight for dominance in the herd. Great endurance and great vision is needed. The victorious ram will gather a harem of up to 50 ewes, over which he will guard jealously for one season. He is in peak condition now, but by the end of the rutting season, he will be a mere shadow of his former self. Great vision was also needed to add another vital component to this new national park. game rangers, men like Harry Voliter, who in 1904 had to fight off an attacking lion with just his hunting knife. Harry survived. The lion didn't. Today's rangers need dedicated vision to ensure the survival of the African lion and other species. It is often very scientific work. The latest technology is used to ensure good management in Kruger. Today's rifle is more likely to be a dart gun used to bring down jumbo so that more research can be done. And it is often on such research that the future survival of a species depends. Rangers have to be experts out in the bush, trackers, detectives, policemen. Kruger also offers tented accommodation for those visitors who prefer the safari feel of Africa, such as at Tamburti tent camp near Orpen Gate. For most visitors, the biggest thrill in Kruger is the big three: the cats, lion, leopard, and cheetah. This is a rare occasion, a special treat. Cheetahs up a tree. Cheetahs are not really creatures of the trees, although they favor high points as lookouts to exercise their exceptional vision. These two seem to be quite good tree climbers. But the object is not hunting this time. They are simply fooling around. They are playing a little game of hide and seek. Cheetahs are timid creatures, not nearly as aggressive as their bigger cousin, the leopard, the most elusive, the most secretive, and arguably the most beautiful big cat of Africa. The king of the savannah, the lion, the greatest of Africa's cats. An adult male can stand 1,2 meters at the shoulder and weigh over 250 kilograms. In fact, Kruger's lions are some of the most magnificent in Africa. They are great family animals and live in prides of up to 30 members. They relax together and they hunt together. There is tension in the herds. The lions are on the prowl. Waterholes are the favorite killing grounds for lions, and the herds always sense it. The lionesses make most of the actual kills, and she will get this wildebeest into a clearing and wait for the others to join her. But where there are predators, the scavengers are never far behind. Vultures are an integral and vital part of the food chain, as indeed are the other scavengers, such as the spotted hyena, a strong and clever competitor, not only as a scavenger, but also as a hunter. And there are others too who want to share in the spoils, such as the black-backed jackal. Moving further north, Satara is on the plains in the central section of the park. This is the second largest camp after Skukuza, and is a welcome oasis of indigenous shade trees, which include marula, knobthorn, and leadwood. An oasis for both human visitors and others. Be on your guard. There is fierce competition for your breakfast. The grassy plains of Satara are good for viewing the game species that enjoy this habitat. Large herds of buffalo and the predators that follow them also occur here. There are prides of lions which specialize in hunting buffalo. It's all part of life and death on the savannah. And like the cycles of life and death, there are also cycles of wet and dry. Indeed, the season of the wet is the beginning of the season of new life. The rain will bring relief to the parched earth and animals alike, injecting and inspiring new energy into the cycle of life. Of course, not everyone appreciates the rain, and some need a little sheltering, a little comforting. But the plant life will be revived and send out new shoots, and the animals will regenerate themselves. The drab winter felt begins to change. The long-tailed cassia is the first to burst into a shower of yellow blooms. Other trees follow, coloring the landscape in a riot of hues. Bulbs and shrubs add to the splendor. For the impala ewes, the waiting is over. It is lambing season, the time of the wet-eyed fawns. The rains have ensured that enough grazing is available for all the additional members of the herd. Although all they really want at first is mother's milk. After the first rain showers, nursery herds are seen all over the park. To get the most out of Kruger, it is not always necessary to just keep driving, clocking up kilometers. Spend some time at a waterhole, especially in the dry season. It could be very rewarding. Brown-headed parrots are not often seen in the open. The waterhole can provide a veritable parade of species. All you have to do is wait for them to arrive. Most animals need a drink, but they have to be extremely cautious when they come down to the water. Mud hollows form when the sun's harsh rays begin to suck the waterholes dry. These mud wallows offer an excellent opportunity to get rid of itchy parasites in difficult spots. Even the thick-skinned elephant can also have an awkward itch, difficult to reach. things are not always what they seem in nature. This might look like a lover's embrace, but more likely it is a territorial dispute being settled to determine who is boss of the waterhole. The thirsty nursery herd of kudu pays little attention to this confrontation. All they are interested in is a drink, secure in the company of the adults of the herd. Another day in Africa draws to a close, transforming the waterhole into a shimmering wonderland of colors and reflections. Olifant's camp, almost exactly in the center of the park, has the finest views of any camp in Kruger. Built on top of a cliff above the Olifants River, the camp looks out over the meandering river, across the rolling plains of the eastern side of the park, to the mountains and beyond to Mozambique. Patience, a good pair of binoculars, and good vision are all you need at Olifants. It was another vision of the people who created Kruger over the years, that visitors should be able to get right down to basics, to get out there and walk. Wilderness trails were established to make the vision a reality. 8 trails are now available throughout the park. If you have a little more time or a greater interest in the bush itself, these trails offer you the chance to get out there with a ranger and experience the park on the ground, to learn about the smaller things, the trees and the flowers. Feel the ground under your feet. Let the ranger share his knowledge with you.
And this, the name of this thing in Afrikaans is kiriklapper. Now kiri is a walking stick.
Of course, there are bigger things out here too. A rhino midden, which means somewhere out there in the bush is a free-roaming rhino bull. Where can he be? Right in front? Or is he behind you? Suddenly he's there, bigger and more armor-plated than you ever imagined. This is the time when, behind the man with the rifle, is a good place to be. The first wilderness trails were introduced in 1978. A hike normally lasts for 3 nights and 2 days. The trails have become a very popular feature of Kruger National Park, with bookings on most having to be made a year in advance. They go through some of the finest wilderness areas of the park, giving hikers the chance to get the true feel of wild Africa. This particular one is along the Olifants River. Each specific trail has a base camp, and all hikers are accompanied by a ranger. This is the ultimate way to experience the wild, to make really close contact with the creatures which inhabit it, and to get that special feeling, that emotion, that comes from exposure to wilderness. Dawn in camp means making plans for the day ahead, where to walk, what to look for. It has its rewards and its anxieties. Encountering a lion while on foot gives you a rush of adrenaline you probably won't ever feel again. A realization of how insignificant and vulnerable you are in the wide open spaces of Africa. Your senses tell you to run, but your legs won't obey. They have suddenly turned into jelly. Never run or make sudden movements, warns the ranger. It could cost you your life. Just stand still or back off slowly. But this is what it's all about. Just you and the wilderness. Still in the central section of the park is Letaba, a halfway house for those traveling the full length of Kruger. Time to relax a little here, do a little shopping, and enjoy the traditional Ndebele wall decorations. The Elephant Hall of Fame is also here at Letaba. Here you can view the actual tusks of the renowned Magnificent Seven, that group of old bulls whose display of ivory made them world famous. Here are Zombo, Jao, Kambaku, Mafunyane, and Lulamiti, Shawu, and Shingwedzi, and their stories, and the story of their kind. The elephant is an extraordinary creature in every respect. The largest land-dwelling mammal, the African elephant weighs in at up to 6 tons, and yet this gentle giant has no natural enemies, only disease and man. It will graze and browse nearly 1/4 ton of vegetation a day. It likes to drink every day, and at a single session can take in up to 220 liters of water. They love water, and given the opportunity will spend hours in it, and they are excellent swimmers too. That trunk contains around 60,000 muscles, and it can kill an attacker or pick up a matchstick. Elephants are wonderfully sociable animals and excellent parents. The entire herd or family group will look after the calves, protecting them from any possible harm and intrusion. Elephant society is a matriarchal one, the herd being run by the dominant cow. Young bulls will engage in mock combat from an early age, preparing for great battles that will come in later life. Waving of the ears is the elephant's unique air conditioning system. A lacework of blood vessels in the ears is cooled by the flow of air, thus reducing body temperature. Elephants like to eat the raisin bush, as do the processionary worms. In fact, these worms cannot live without this bush. Here they are on the march, or at least on the crawl, to a new breeding spot in the raisin bushes. They will follow my leader for considerable distances. It may take a little time for this procession of processionary worms to clear the road. Apart from the main camps, there is also a system of private camps throughout Kruger, such as boulders near Palabora Gate. Private camps are booked by a single group looking for a special setting for a special occasion, be it personal or business. Of course, they are exclusive, and everyone enjoys the privacy, even the little swifts. Mupani is a modern camp on the main road running north-south through Kruger. Nearly 2/3 up the park and situated on a large and picturesque dam, Mupani, like all main camps, has a restaurant and a shop for supplies and curios. A vital part of the original vision for Kruger was that the park should be restored to its original condition as far as the diversity of species was concerned. This meant a major program to supplement the dwindling numbers of some species. These included the cheetah, the roan antelope, one of the most endangered species in South Africa, as well as the eland, Africa's largest antelope. And that very shy creature of the African bush, the nyala. The white rhino had become extinct in the area by the end of the last century, and at its very first meeting, the then National Parks Board already discussed reintroducing them to Kruger. A lot of research was needed, and the project eventually got off the ground in 1961, when 2 bulls and 2 cows were translocated from Natal game reserves to Kruger. More animals were brought in later. The project was a conservation success story, and today there are some 2,200 of these animals in the park. So successful was the rhino project, and so plentiful have they become in Kruger, that animals are now selected for the restocking of other national parks around the country, and even further afield. The most recent reintroduction program was the Liechtenstein's hartebeest, which was brought in from Malawi. The northern section of Kruger has a charm and beauty of its own, and up here is Shingwedzi camp. This is hot country, and the sparkling pool in the camp gives welcome relief. Apart from the hutted accommodation, there are also camping and caravan facilities, as in most other camps in the park. So Shingwedzi really is a good spot for a holiday. The camp still boasts some of the old type of accommodation, reminiscent of an earlier, perhaps less hurried time. These tourists are engaged in the popular pastime of birding, and this is a good place to do it. A small pool makes fishing quite easy for the storks. The water is drying up, and the fish have nowhere else to go. The catch is huge, and the marabou finds swallowing quite a challenge. What is astounding, he can actually fly off with that heavy load in his tummy. The marabou's handsome brother, the saddle-billed stork, seems to have bitten off more than he can chew. A pied kingfisher shows a little more finesse with his technique, tenderizing his lunch on the dam wall, while Big Brother, a giant kingfisher, looks on, longing for a bite. But in vain. Little Brother wants it all to himself. Another kingfisher, a brown hooded this time, and a woodland kingfisher grooming. Bee-eaters aplenty, a carmine, a little bee-eater, and a white-fronted. The smallest bird in the park, a tiny blue waxbill. What an unusual pose for a grey lory, dust bathing, to get rid of fleas and other pests. Adding more colour are the rollers, a lilac-breasted roller, and its visiting cousin from Europe. Flaps up, undercarriage down. A white stork from Europe makes a perfect landing. The big raptors, a tawny eagle, the magnificent marshal, the symbol of Africa, the fish eagle, and the unmistakable bateleur. Dead trees may be useful lookout points for birds of prey, but the living trees and plants of Kruger are as vital to the natural scheme of things as is the diversity of animal species. After all, herbivores, such as giraffes, survive on this diversity of vegetation, as do baboons. A sausage tree provides a ready meal. The kernels are what he is after. This magnificent tree is a jackalberry. It occurs throughout the park, especially along rivers, where it grows to enormous proportions. It's an important tree of the bushveld and provides food and shelter to an amazing variety of creatures. Baboons eat the fruit, sleep and play in the branches. They are actually the tree planters of the park. They move from tree to tree and in the process distribute the seeds to places where they can germinate. Birds also thrive on the vitamin-rich fruits of this tree. Pigeons usually eat dry seeds, but the African green pigeon loves berries. Jackalberry might be an odd name for a tree. After all, jackals are carnivores. But seeds from the jackalberry were found in the jackal's droppings, hence the name. The leopard too hardly is a fruit eater, but it will use the jackalberry as a larder or hiding place for its kills. Not always successfully, as this goshawk proves. of the African night requires a special kind of vision, night vision. To give visitors an opportunity for some really special sightings, a recent innovation in Kruger has been night drives with fully qualified rangers. Many predators, including the lion, spend most of their days lolling around in the shade. It is really only at night that they become active and get on with the business of being hunters. Scenes like these are rarely encountered by the daytime visitor and are therefore a special treat. The fight for food is never a passive business. It's the toughest who gets the lion's share. These drives also offer the chance to see some of Kruger's nocturnal birds, such as nightjars. The leopard is back at his kill in the jackalberry, where the goshawk earlier enjoyed a free lunch. And following on the heels of the leopard is that perpetual hanger-on, the hyena. The hyena waits below. No morsel that falls to the ground goes undetected. The hyena has excellent night sight. But spotlights make it easier for tourists to see the night creatures of the park. A giant eagle owl uses a control post as his perch and regurgitates pellets of waste formed in his stomach. His diet includes furry creatures, and he has to get rid of the fluff in his stomach in some way or another. A tree frog dreaming another vision perhaps of man's ancient presence in Kruger. Kruger National Park may be just 100 years old, but man has been here for many thousands of years, and this human cultural heritage is now being conserved as well. Perhaps the first visitors to Kruger were the Sun people, Stone Age hunter-gatherers who recorded their story in the rock shelters. Then there was the Iron Age, and the great citadel of Thulamela has become one of the most important archaeological sites in South Africa. Archaeologists are unearthing a precious account, often recorded in gold, of these ancient South Africans and their history. Sir Percy Fitzpatrick's Jock of the Bushveld, one of South Africa's favourite characters in literature, is also here. Traditional thatching, almost an art form that has been practiced for hundreds of years, is being preserved here. And the art of the painted wall, a heritage of the Ndebele people, is helping to keep traditional skills alive. A new vision is to give something back to the park's neighbouring communities in the form of raw material harvested from the park and the opportunity to sell home crafts at available outlets. The northernmost gate to the park is Pafuri. This section of the park has a somewhat different atmosphere to the rest of Kruger, an atmosphere which seems to breathe history. The main camp up here is Punda Maria, itself a breath of that history where the huts are whitewashed and thatched and the stoops are paved. The area around the camp is well wooded, a delight for tree spotters and birders alike. That giant of the north, the baobab, Its flowers are pollinated by creatures of the night, such as bats. The baobab often is a complete ecosystem in itself. A little resident, a red-headed weaver, found sanctuary in its leaves, while the bush-loving nyala enjoys its shade. A chameleon camouflages itself perfectly in a toad tree. Another beauty, the fever tree, once thought to be the origin of malaria. And the lala palm, a favorite of the elephant. In fact, its hard white fruit is known as vegetable ivory. And another giant, the nyala tree, the fruit of which is much loved by a wide variety of wildlife, including baboons and monkeys. The vervet monkeys don't go hungry in good years, when Kruger's trees are full of fruit. For these youngsters, as for all youngsters, the future belongs to them. But for the future there is a broader picture, a great vision, a vision for all generations to come. A 100 years ago, President Paul Kruger had a dream, a vision of a wildlife sanctuary. Today, there is talk of transfrontier conservation areas, and Kruger National Park could well form the core of one of the greatest. A conservation area without fences, without artificial boundaries, where the ancient migration routes were re-established and the great herds could wander at will across the continent. A vast conservation area that not only conserved wildlife, but also protected fragile ecosystems and vital water catchments. A peace park for Africa. Recognizing human needs and nature's vulnerability. Where people and wildlife can exist side by side, in harmony, for all times to come. A vision for the next generation. For the next generations of all living things who inhabit this heritage. A pipe dream? Perhaps not. Anyway, what is a dream but a vision in the making? And the vision lives on.